Hey kids, welcome back to Rob's Red Hotspot and welcome to an updated tutorial for Songs of Syx. We're going to be covering the early game, the latest version 6.48. You can see it up here. The early game has been made a lot easier. This should be a shorter video than the last one. We're going to select a random game. I'm going to keep everything on normal. And I recommend starting with humans. The other races are kind of specialized in specific areas, whereas humans tend to be a little bit more generalist. So if you want to kind of explore more aspects of the game, humans, I think, are probably your best bets. I'm not going to select any titles, and we're just going to go with the standard random map. Okay, so there's, I think, 6 things we're going to be looking for as humans. We're looking for a temperate climate. We're looking for a high fertility area. We are looking for access to fresh water, and that's going to be either a lake or a river. We are looking for an area that's not isolated. So isolated areas tend to be either in the middle of forests or in sort of weird corners of the map that are far away from where other people are going to settle. Like here, for example. We would ideally like to have one mineral resource. If you can't find the perfect place to settle, it's not the end of the world. You are going to be able to compensate for that in different ways. If you're regenerating the map a lot, looking for good places to start, the other thing you can do is actually edit the map. So if I look at this spot here, I've got pretty much everything I want. I've only got 18.5% forest. So I could either regenerate the map or try and find another spot somewhere else. Or I can also go into the edit mode here and just add some forest if I want to. But I think I'm probably just going to go with this. So now we're going to choose where to settle. If the mineral resources that you want to mine are overlapping with the edge of the map, then I would consider regenerating the map. We're going to look at the fertility overlay here, just kind of see what we're working with. So basically, the entire map is basically high fertility. There's really no area that's particularly low fertility on this map. So I would actually advise settling near a food source. So we've got a lot of hunting stuff over here. This is a little bit close to the edge of the map. Let's turn on the harvestable map mode. You're probably going to want to look for either fruits, vegetables, or mushrooms. And you can always be near animals if you need to. Keep in mind that hunting animals will potentially result in your guys getting killed. So once we've chosen our settlement location, we start with a few piles of goods here. So we have 16 livestock, 20 rations, 40 grain, 100 wood, and 60 stone. So the first thing we're going to want to build is some stuff to make sure that our people don't starve or die of exposure. We are going to want to set up a forage order for this fruit. Now you see here there's these little exclamation points. The fruit is not going to be ready until late summer, but our rations are going to last us until then, so we'll be fine. Right now it's day 1 of spring. We're waiting until day 3 of summer. So we're going to set up a hearth here. Go into the health menu here and set up a hearth. And we're going to set up a well, and we're going to set up a house. Humans like stone buildings. The other thing that we have is 16 livestock. Livestock is very expensive, and if it sits on the ground, it is pretty likely going to all rot. Every resource in this game spoils. You can see here livestock spoils at -50% per year when it's not stored in a warehouse. We're definitely going to want to get a pasture built for that livestock. I'm going to pick an intelligent pasture. I want to build a pasture on fertile land, so we're going to take a look at the fertility here. So maybe over here. You want to find some open land, because if you build it over forest, they have to clear the forest first, and it's going to take too long. So let's build a pasture here. I'm going to make one for 5 workers. I'm looking at the worker number up here. There we go. That's 5 workers exactly. Make sure you place the huts so that you get full efficiency. So I'm going to unpause at this point. We're just going to pay close attention to what season it is. We're going to see if we have enough wood. Yeah, we're going to run out of wood. There's a trick I'm going to teach you now that's a really good idea for when you need wood. Rather than just harvesting wood, let's start clearing a farm. So I'm going to plan a grain farm for maybe 5 workers. We're going to pick a high fertility area, like maybe down here. That's fertility 86%. Yeah, that's about as good as it's going to get. So we're looking for an area that's wooded so that we're going to clear some wood. And yeah, we'll grab grain farm here. That's 84% fertility. And we're going to try and resize this farm so that it only has 5 workers. So now what we're going to do is we're going to unpause. They're going to go do that as they gather up this wood. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go into this menu here, and we're going to suspend the job. I have made hotkeys for activate job and suspend job. I use Control A to activate jobs and Control S to suspend jobs. So we're going to suspend that job. We can see we actually probably have just enough wood sitting in piles here to finish that construction. There we go. They're still working on that house. We've got 5 herders in here, and what I would do actually is increase the number of herders just to carry all the livestock. You see they've taken all the livestock, so we've got 16 out of 25 animals. Now we can put it down to 5 workers. For now, that leaves us 5 odd jobbers to continue doing various tasks. Okay, so we're out of stone, so we can go to clear rock and select some stone there. Take a look at what season it is. It is day 4 of spring, so we have 2 more days before we need to clear this. The house is done. That's great. That means that they won't be cold in the winter. Next up, we're going to build a few more buildings. We're going to go for a janitor. The janitor, we just want the smallest possible janitor. We want a warehouse. We don't need to go too big for the time being. And we want a carpenter. I'm going to build a carpenter near the woods here. We're going to build a carpenter for 10 workers. Something like this. When you get to day 3 of summer, we're going to suspend all of these construction jobs, and they're going to focus on picking all those fruits. That way, we're not going to go hungry this winter. So I'm actually going to prioritize the warehouse so that we can store that food. Once your warehouse is complete, we are going to store, in this case, fruit or whatever other food you're harvesting, meat, stone, wood, livestock, furniture. With the Intelligent pasture, we're actually almost producing enough food for our people. We've got 5.09 production rate, and our consumption rate is 5 per day. The warehouse, we're going to put 1 worker in there, and we're going to probably expand the fruit storage for the time being so that we can store the maximum amount of fruits. So you can see now we have 47 days of food. And now we can activate our janitor and our carpenter again. And there's our carpenter. Now we do not need 10 carpenters, so we're going to just have 1 carpenter for now. And we're going to make sure that we're just going to have 1 janitor as well. We can activate this farm here so that we'll have a source of wood to serve the carpenter. And we're also going to build a hunter. So we want to build a hunter for 5 workers. So hunters are the most efficient source of food in the early game. However, once you have more than 15 hunters in total in your city, the amount of food that each hunter is able to get starts to go down. So there's basically diminishing returns after 15. I would say you wouldn't want to go over about 30, at which point other food sources are going to be a better source of food. And we're just waiting on furniture. So what we'll do is we'll put all these workers, all of our excess workers in furniture. I'm actually going to also build a speaker. It's going to take up 1 worker. So in the early game, we're going to increase our population through immigration. Immigration comes by increasing loyalty. So you see, as soon as I built that speaker, we got the well here, we've got a speaker, we've got a hearth. These bars start increasing. And as you get to a certain threshold of loyalty and happiness, your population increases. So a few things we can do to further increase happiness. We can place some roads. Don't go overboard with roads because your janitors are what maintain your buildings, and they also maintain your roads. So if you build too many roads, you'll end up overworking your janitors. We're starting to get some loyalty from having roads. I can accept another immigrant. See that we're up to 23 animals. We're producing 6 food. So we can basically almost feed our population with just the pasture. And the hunter is done now. Okay, go back down to 1 carpenter for the time being. Get some hunters going. The next thing we're going to want to build is a lavatory. I'm going to go kind of a mid-sized lavatory here. If you look in the services here, you can see that the lavatory is pretty much the most essential service in the early game. There we go. We now have our lavatory. We're going to set it down to 1 plumber, and you're going to see right away happiness is going to start going up. Next up, we're going to build some more civics to try and get more people happy in our city. So we can build some shrines for humans. Humans actually like all of the religions, so you can actually build all 4 of them. So what have we got here? A Minion, a Thuri, Creator, and Schmaler. We can also kind of expand our road network as we expand here. It's not a bad idea. Keeps people happy. Now let's set up a food stall. So that's in distribution, food stall. And I would just make it for about 1 worker, something like that. I'm going to set 1 food vendor here. Now we're up to 26 people, and we've unlocked laboratories. So I'm going to take stock of our food situation. We're still producing more food than we consume. This pasture here is kind of slowly growing. One thing we can do is we can upgrade our warehouse. So now we're going to duplicate this hunter. So what we do is we shift click. I'm going to rotate it. I'm just going to slide it in here. Perfect, like that. Now the second hunter here, we're going to change it to fur for the time being. And we're going to start making some clothing. So we can shift click the carpenter, and then just up here we can change what's being built. 5 hunters are producing just under 5 fur. So we can probably actually just use... 2 tailors will be enough. Make sure we have storage bins for clothing and fur, and we're going to build a market to distribute the clothing. There we go. Once you've built your market, reduce it to 1 worker and untick everything except clothing. We're not going to be distributing any other goods for the time being. Let another 4 people in. Now we're still struggling a little bit in terms of food. We're going to build another hunter here. So we've got one hunter on fur, and we're going to have two hunters on meat for the time being. We're basically waiting for this pasture to start producing a little bit more meat. We're going to start scaling up other kinds of food production as well. Now we've unlocked export depots and import depots. You're going to start getting these trade deals that come in. I would pretty much just ignore them for now. They're usually not worth doing. So at this point, we've maxed out our hunters. We're going to gradually want to shift from hunters over to producing food in other ways. We can actually see that our Intelligent pasture here is maxed out at 25 animals. So what we could do is duplicate this. We could also get a grain farm going and get a bakery going. But while we wait to shift our food over to more scalable food sources, what we could do is build a laboratory for about 10 people. We just put 5 people in it. The laboratory is going to start ticking up science. And what should we do with the science? Well, one thing we can do right away is, you can see here, it only costs 50 to get 10% more resources from our hunters. So that's a really good way of scaling up your early game economy. And then later on, when we stop using hunters, we can actually refund those techs and spend the research on other things. So we put one upgrade into hunter. We're gonna do some more of that later. For now, let's grab graveyard. We want a graveyard we want 1 employee. There we go, something like that. Looks pretty good. Next up, we're going to want to grab a stage. We're starting to get to a place where we're going to be able to get to 100 population pretty quickly here. Our next priority is going to be defending ourselves from attack. At 75 population, we can be attacked by our neighbors. At this point, we're just waiting for our technology to tick up. The next thing we're going to want to research is makeshift weapons. For makeshift weapons, we're going to build another carpenter, and we're going to make room for warhammers. There we go. Now we're going to just change the recipe here to warhammers. Let's put 5 people in there. Now we're going to start accumulating weapons. To unlock the training ground, we need to get to 75. Now, you'll notice here that we're starting to have a little bit of a precarious food situation. I do have 19 odd jobbers, so I'm starting to accumulate livestock. Let's build another pasture. Shift click to copy it and then move the gate to make it a little bit more accessible. And the other thing we can do is go into research and once again upgrade our hunters. There we go. We've unlocked Prontix, so we can make a training ground. We're going to make a training ground for 10 people. As soon as you make the training ground, you got to make some adjustments here. We're going to select all of these and disband them. Create a new regiment. That's in this menu here. We're going to edit this. We only want 10 people. We want 100% melee training. We want to give them as many warhammers as we have, and we want to hit accept. We are struggling to produce enough food right now, so I think what we're going to start doing is we're going to start accumulating grain. Some grain up here that we can forage, and some down here. We're going to finish up this farm finally. We're almost in summer, so this is actually pretty good timing. And we're going to get a bakery built. We'll go for a bakery for 10 people, something like that. And we're just going to turn that off until our grain is set up. Now, we're definitely struggling with food here. Do have a little bit of science, so in the meantime, we can spend another 113 science to increase our meat production by 10%. But as we can see, the hunters do not scale up very well in the long term. Okay, now we've got 5 grain farmers. Once this harvest is done, 0 days, start the new harvest cycle. We're going to figure out how much grain we're actually going to produce. We can start to scale up our baking over time. As we expand our grain farms, our baking is going to actually exceed what we're able to produce in terms of hunting. At that point, we'll be able to switch our hunters over to producing more clothing, because we are definitely short on clothing at the moment. In the meantime, we can auto accept immigrants up to 100. I'm going to start producing more furniture because we're going to be able to start selling furniture. Next thing we want to research is the metal smelter. And we can build a metal smelter maybe down here. We're going to want to get some exports going. So let's go do logistics, export depot. So the new system for exporting is a little bit different than it used to be. So in order to start exporting, we're going to pick a resource. So in this case, for now, it's going to be furniture. We are going to tell it to take furniture out of this warehouse, and only when our storage is 80% full. Now we need to set up a trade partnership. So we're going to go to the top. We're going to click on this here, and we are going to try and negotiate. Hit the barter button a couple times. We're going to need a little bit more. We don't want to give them all our food. So yeah, we're gonna need a little bit more resources to open trade with them. We can start by maybe cutting down some wood, because wood is renewable. Just going to increase our storage so that we can store it. And let's see if that's good enough. We're going to go here, trade deal. What we can do is increase the amount of wood. There we go. That'll do. And we'll hit accept. And now we've opened a trade deal with our neighbor, so we can trade for anything. So at this point, we're at 95 population. We're now producing enough food with our bakers that we don't need the hunters anymore. And we're going to switch them over to producing fur, which is going to allow us to produce a lot more clothing. This is a pretty good place to leave off. We're just under 100 population. We've got a bakery going. We've got pastures that are gradually increasing the number of animals that we're producing so that we can gradually scale these up over time as well if we want to produce more meats. We've got a metal smelter we're not using yet. The idea here is we're going to essentially start producing a surplus of furniture, selling off the furniture, and purchasing coal and ore to start smelting metal, which is going to allow us to do some upgrading, like upgrade our bakery and start to really scale things up. At this point, all you're going to do, pay close attention to your food supply, your workforce, and sort of gradually scale things up. A good rule of thumb is to make sure that you have 10 soldiers per 100 population. That's what I use. About 10% of your population should be soldiers. This will not only ensure that you can defend yourself, but you can also gradually start to build an army towards attacking your neighbors. So I'm going to leave this tutorial off here. I'm thinking of continuing the city in a kind of let's play format, because every time the developer makes a new version, there are enough changes to the game that it doesn't really make sense to do tutorials in the sort of mid-game and late game. But if we play like a let's play format where I'm doing maybe half-an-hour episodes where the city advances every episode, then we can kind of experiment with the mid and late phase of the game. I can learn more about those phases of the game, and you guys can watch along and comment and stuff like that. So let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd like to see. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.